Okay, so I think we're live on YouTube now as well. Okay, so thanks for sticking with me, everyone. So, all right, hello. Oh yes, happy Valentine's Day. All right, so let's pop open this embroidery. Hello, everyone. Thanks for popping in. I'm super excited for this one tonight. I got to see Chad Kitty all weekend, and this guy is modeled a little bit after Chad Kitty, so I'm excited to work on that. So our instructions are a bit different than what we might have seen here before, too. I'm going to zoom you guys on in. All right, there we are. So if we take a look at our stitch guide tonight, you know, we have our normal stitch guide that shows the colors and like the color of the floss and what stitches to use throughout. And then we also have this secondary guide here. So this is the one that's referring to how many floss strands to use. So like I said, we're going to start off with 6-strand embroidery floss, and those 6 strands are going to be divided into smaller strands. So here's 6 strands is the full amount of strands in one strand of in one segment of embroidery floss. And then, you know, so we have 6 strands, then we're going to reduce it to 4 strands, we're going to reduce that to 2 strands, and then we also have some areas that just use a single strand of floss. So they're color-coded here. Like, for example, the 6 strands is this gold area, 4 strands everywhere that's red, 2 strands everywhere that's pink, and we'll do 1 strand for everywhere that is blue. So we'll be constantly checking this against this. So like, for example, the 6 strands, I think that's where we're going to start tonight, and then we're going to go find that area on here, and I did make the lines bigger there too, so that kind of correlates with that. So that is how we're going to read this, a little different than what we've been doing before, because this is new, having the different number of strands as we work on this. So all right, let's get all our stuff out here. Here's all the floss that comes with the kit, a little ribbon to decorate this if we frame it in the hoop, our little embroidery instruction booklet, and our fabric and needle right here. Okay, so I'm not going to press that or anything. I'm just going to put it right in the hoop right away. It comes with the hoop too, the kit. So, and I think I'm going to start from 6 strands and then work my way down to those single strand. So we're going to start with the jade plant. So I'm just kind of centering my design here, and I'm going to tighten the closure a little bit, and then I'm going to just kind of pull just to get everything just so it's taut in the hoop. Not really stretched out, but I don't want it loose, really. All right, and then when I got it, I'm just going to finish tightening it, and we are ready to start stitching. Oh, Celeste says, love this strand guide. Visual learning is key for me. Oh, that's good to hear. Yeah, me too. I try to be as straightforward and clear as I can, so if there's anything ever in my instructions or anything that you think could be a little bit better, just let me know. But yeah, so we have our little strand guide as a separate little guide there. So, all right, we're going to start with 6 strands. So that looks like it's this little area here, which are these kind of large jades. So these are going to be what's closest to us, and that's kind of how I'm doing how many strands. So let's back it up a little bit. So I'm going to show you guys again. This is my floss thickness guide, and these are some different types of threads at the bottom. But if we look at just the numbers here, this is just normal 6-strand embroidery floss and all the different strands just using a back stitch. So look how thick the number 6. All 6 strands are compared to a single strand. And you can see it here too. The floss here is 6 strands, and the thickness guide text is just 1 strand. So you really get a sense of different different numbers of strands work or look, and then we have like everything in between, right? 2 through 5. So I kind of have this nearby always just to kind of keep in mind the different look of different strands, even within like the same stitch. So we're going to play with that a little bit today in this design, and how we're playing with it is that things that are closer to our vision, I'm going to make thick, and things that are farther away, I'm going to make thin. So in this case, it's like we're looking down at this plant that's on a table, and way down underneath the table on the floor is the cat and the carpet and ball of yarn. So what the thing that's closest to us is this top part of the jade. So that's what I'm using 6 strands for, because that's going to give me the thickest line. So the thing closest to me, I'm having thick, and then as we go all the way down till we get to the cat that's way down laying underneath the table, that's the farthest away from us, like if we were to look at this in real life. So I'm using just the one strand, if that makes sense, right? So and in the middle I have 4 strands, and here we have 2 strands. So the further, the top of the table is 2 strands, and then all the way to the floor we're doing the 1 strand. And again, that's going to give us this kind of effect of distance, really. Just subtle, but a fun way one way you can play with different number of strands in your embroidery. You could just do it with, you could use different numbers of strands if you just wanted a flower that was, poofier than, a little thin grasses or something. So like the thin grasses, I might do 1 strand, whereas the thick, fluffy flower, I might do 6 strands. So you can do it that way as well. But we're doing it with perspective. Like the things closest to us are going to be big, and the things farthest away from us are going to be small. So that's the way we're approaching the different number of strands. So in the instructions, we'll be doing this guy first, and that's this fresh basil. So I'm going to get my 18 inches or so to start out. Oh, I need a scissors for the evening. We'll use the little green scissors. He'll match with what we're working on today. All right. So now I don't have to split this floss, which is so weird. We haven't really done a lot with 6 strands of embroidery floss. So I'm going to just thread this right away. Oh man, with the needle that I already lost. There we go. I should get my needle minder down here. Oh, that's still packed, you guys. My needle minder is still packed. We were visiting Chad Kitty and visiting my parents this weekend, and I still haven't unpacked all my stuff. Oh, you like our little scissors? Yeah, this is our fresh basil colored scissors, and we have a whole rainbow of scissors. Oh, Lisa says, hi, cute pattern, and I love the use of different strands according to distance. Yeah, I thought it was just a fun way to play with different number of strands. So I'm doing this by just threading my 6 strands, but this is kind of a lot to pull through the fabric. If this is a little much, you could take 3 strands, separate your floss into 3 strands, and then fold it in half, and then it'd be on your needle like this. And then it's less strands to pull through. But we just went right for the 6 strands. All right, I am going to start with an away knot because I don't have anything else on my I don't have any stitches to weave the ends in the back. So what this is doing is going to reserve a piece of floss. Oh yes, definitely Paragonics. Link in the bio, and I actually have a 20% off in the bio as well. All right, so I gotta pay attention to what green is the 6 strands. So I'm really actually gonna keep my eye on, once I pick the color out and know the stitch, I'm gonna keep an eye on this diagram. So I'm making sure I'm stitching on the right little petals there. So this is a back stitch, and yeah, let's just get going here. So I'm gonna put my needle in the front of the fabric over here, and that is just going to reserve some thread for me. So this is called an away knot. It's a type of waist knot where it's just holding some floss that I'll later weave in. So we'll come back to this. It looks weird now, but it'll make sense in a bit. And I guess I'm gonna start with this. I almost said petal. I guess they're not petals. This little jade leaf, I think. So I'm coming up a stitch length away from the start. So really, like, the start of this jade is right here, and it goes around the bend there. So I'm starting a stitch length, which for me is I'm doing about 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little bit more, of 1/8 of an inch away from the start. And then we're going to go back towards the starting point and go straight down. All right, and that is my first stitch. Oh, Marcia says, cool, I've never done more than 3 strands. I don't know if I can thread the needle. Oh, yeah, it might be a little bit more difficult. Okay, so that's another good reason, Marcia, to maybe do double the length of instead of doing 6 strands, take 3 strands and fold it in half. So thread 3 strands onto your needle, because that's easier, and then fold it in half, and then you'll get 6 strands then. So that might be a better way for you if you're having trouble threading the needle with 6 strands. All right, next stitch. So I'm coming up a stitch length away from the last one, coming up and going back towards the last stitch, and I'm going right in that exact same hole. And that is our basic back stitch. Again, going forward from underneath and backwards towards the first stitch in the same hole on top there. So using all 6 strands is really going to suck up our thread. Like, we're going to go through this green floss really quickly. But that's why I included two skeins of it, just in case you run out. So there's not much that's 6 strands. It's just these 2 jades that are closest. It was so nice visiting my parents, and Chad was around, and I kept sneaking him inside, but then everyone's eyes were getting itchy, so I had to put him back out. And then he stayed out. Little kitty. So cute. He likes just laying. He'll stick out his leg like this too, just lay down and stick out his leg. Sweet little kitty cat. It's sturgeon spearing season again, so that's why we're visiting, because it's always fun to watch that. It's such an event on the lake. All right, there's leaf number 1. I think I'm just going to jump up here, double check. Yep, we're still at the 6 strands. What about these 2 are? Nope, those are a different amount of strands, so good, I won't stitch those. They look kind of big, that's why I was wondering. And you know what, if you mess up and you stitch some more with 6 strands, or you miss one and then you stitch it with 4 strands later or whatever, that's totally fine. It's all going to blend together. It's kind of that general effect of thick to thin that's going to, that overall effect that's going to make that perspective work. So if you do different number of strands here or there, that's totally fine. It's still gonna look good. I'm gonna scoot you guys down here. Okay. Oh man, you guys, I cranked out the unfinished projects though, man, when I was visiting my parents, just like way more than ever before, just working on stuff. It was awesome. Oh, Lisa says, I have 3 cats, and I wasn't a cat person, but now I love them and their unique personalities. Yep. They're all just different goofy little buggers. They're all so funny. I love that they're like little mysteries. Like dogs like have their full expression on their face all the time, but cats you gotta read between the lines with them. They're funny. But yeah, so I finished a lot of small projects that were just hanging out unfinished and were, starting to get to me a little bit. So like I finished, my brother had that hat that he crocheted, and I love the hat, but it was just like 2 rows too short to cover my ears, so I added those 2 rows, but only from the ear and then around the back of the head to the other ear, and then I did that a couple times, and then I went once all the way around the rim, so it's actually lower in the back and around the ears than the front now, and it fits perfectly, and I'm so excited to wear it again. It's just too cold to wear it. I know it's like a winter hat, but I'm still in the wearing my mega warm mutton chops hat. Oh, I know! Rockin' Robin says, we wanted to meet your mom. Yeah, she doesn't usually come on. I think once she waved, she put her hand in and waved. Like 3 years ago. She does come in the chat, though. I know, I always want to show Chad, too, but Chad he would not. I don't think that'd be a thing he'd let me do. But yeah, so I finished that hat. I did finish that tatted piece that we worked on Friday. That tatted piece of the, that looked like a tatting shuttle, and I starched it a little bit. So I'll have to, once I unpack, I'll have to get all those projects out. I definitely want to hand stitch that to that pretty wool fabric that I have, and then sew it into a zipper pouch, so that I'd like to still have happen at some point here. And my mom made a tatted piece, and I sewed that to that jean coat. Oh, and then of course my sweater, my mom's sweater. I finished that tag. We finished that on Friday, sewing in that tag that had the story of the sweater, and then I also added the collar to it as well over the weekend. So I'm really happy with that. Oh, yes! Noeline says that my mom was in the koala quilt video. Yes, she was stitching and sewing on the machine. Yep. So she can definitely be found on the on that koala video over on YouTube. You're right. She did give consent to be in that video. Snuck her in there. All right, so this guy down here is with the 6 strands as well. This little bloop down here, So I think I might actually, well, I'm almost out of floss. I think I'm going to jump down there and do a couple stitches, even though we're not kind of finished with this guy, but then I'll come back, finish these loops, and then come back to the rest of these. So I'm almost out of, I only have like a couple stitches left in this, what I got on the needle here. So we'll weave in the ends and start a new piece. Yep, I'm cutting it pretty close here. This is it. So, all right, there we are so far. Cute little good start on that jade. So this is how I finish my thread. So this is our away knot piece. We'll come back to that. So I'm going to weave in the ends here. So I like, instead of tying knots at the end, I weave in the ends into the backs of stitches that already exist. And I go back and forth 3 times, just trying to grab as many different threads as possible. It's kind of like tying a long knot. But what's nice is I don't have a knot sitting on the back for other threads to catch on. And I can trim close to the threads as well, so I don't have any like little stray threads hanging out either. All right, so I'm going to trim my knot. So we're back to the away knot that we started at the beginning. I'm going to just cut that knot off now. And that was us reserving fabric, or reserving thread here. So now that thread is loose because we cut that knot away, and now we can weave in that end as well. So the reason we did that is because I did not have any stitches yet on my blank fabric. I didn't have any stitches yet to weave in. So we're basically reserving that thread for later, for right now. And again, this is just so I don't have any knots on the back. So I can avoid all those annoying instances of catching my thread on those knots and having little fuzzles pull through to the front. I've eliminated all of that by not having knots. All right, that was 3, right? I think so. All right, let's trim that excess. Fat stitches on the back when we use those, use all 6 strands. Okay, let's get some more. I obviously need a bunch more. All right, I'm getting my like 18 to 24 inches again. I'm just kind of guessing. There we are. Okay, thread that. Oh, I should have done where I doubled up the thread. Oh well, we'll do this. Lisa's asking any quilt projects in the near future. So we are still working on the Splendid Sampler 2. So next week we'll be working on the next block for that. Although we might, maybe we'll prep for quilting on that. We could do that as well. So we'll do that for 2 days. All right, I'm gonna weave in the ends here, and then so again, instead of starting with a knot, I'm just gonna weave into stitches that are already existing on the back, and then we'll just get started right away. So we're still working on the Splendid Sampler 2 project. That's always going to be the 4th week of the month, so the week after we do our embroidery of the month, which is this week. And it's just going to be for a couple days, though. But I am hoping to stay consistently working on that project because we want to get that done too. And then we'll be stitching our alphabet fellers into a quilt. So we have A and B done. B I finished at my parents' house and I haven't unpacked it yet. So A and B we have done. We are going to do that as in the quilt as you go process. So that'll be another quilt we're working on. I'll have like the specs on how I'm going to do that quilt and everything soon here. All right, I'm going to keep going now after I weave in the ends. So those are 2 quilting projects that we'll definitely have, and I suspect we will have more little mini quilting projects pop up pretty often along or during the year here. Sewing projects, at least. Like already, for example, I want to that tatting project. I want to sew that into a zipper pouch, and but yeah, so we're basically going to continue those. When I was at my parents' house, I did actually quilt on the I Love Home quilt a little bit more. If any of you guys remember that, that's from years ago, a quilt along that we did here live. And that's not done yet. It's been like sitting around for years, all pinned together, ready to quilt. Like, by pinned together, I mean sandwich. So the front of the fabric and the batting and the back of the fabric I had like connected with pins. And then once I sew them together, I can, or called quilting, I can take those pins out. So I actually worked on that. I did just about most, for like 90% of the, I guess, pre-quilting, you might call it. So I did the stitch in the ditch quilting before I do fancy quilting, like free motion quilting. So what I mean by that is I just kind of stitched in between the seams. Like I just stitched down the seams in some places where I thought I'd frame a piece with those seams before stitching the decorative stitches in between those places. So I did that. I want to do some decorative like borders around the centers of the main blocks. But when we made that quilt back in the day, I didn't know how to free motion quilt yet, and I knew I wanted to do some free motion quilting for those borders of the blocks. So I kind of let that project sit and waited until I could learn how to quilt a little bit more, and I've done that. I feel like I can handle it now, and so now it's been kind of fun revisiting that project, and I brought it home just to my parents' house just in case I had time to work on it, and I actually, got almost done with the stitch in the ditch part of it. Used my mom's walking foot on her sewing machine. Since I don't have a working machine that can really do that right now, which is a bummer. I gotta take care of that. I don't know why I haven't done that yet. I know why, because I don't have a place to bring it. I don't want to bring it to the sewing machine place that I used to go to, so I need to search out a new sewing machine repair place, and I just haven't done that work yet. But yeah, so I do want to do some videos of like the free motion quilting of that and some of these other projects we got hanging out here, like the triangle tango quilt, some other projects to get past that quilting stage. But yeah, I just kind of worked on stuff at my parents' house, which is just super duper relaxing. And went on some nice walks. Got to walk on the ice, walk on the lake, I should say. They live on a lake and it's totally frozen, and that was just kind of fun. Lake walk. And had to bundle up though. It's still super chilly. All right, we're almost done with this little bloop of a jade. So we're gonna go on. I'm gonna jump back on to these ones. So these little center parts of the jade, it's just like smaller leaves on this one with the 6 strands. So the 6 strand area, I'm going to stitch those with the back stitch, but as we get to the smaller ones, here we see those little center bloops. Those could be done with a single chain stitch. Just because they're smaller, and a single chain stitch would be a little bit easier and cute. So I'll share how to do that once we get down there. Noeline says you need a new sewing machine, updated vintage machine, of course with zigzag. Yep, I have no working machines with a zigzag right now, which is annoying. I just, it's just if I just get my one sewing machine from the 70s fixed. Oh, thanks so much, Tracy. Tracy says, "What a beautiful pattern." Oh, I appreciate that. But if I just get that one sewing machine fixed, then it'd solve all my problems. I could do the walking foot stuff. I could, just do all the quilting on there and zigzags and all that stuff. So I just need to get that fixed. It was my main original go-to machine, and I need it back. So the problem is, I know I've talked about this before, but the feed dogs, so the teeth that kind of pull the fabric as you go. Oh, Tracy says, "I like how you match your scissors to the floss." Yep, maybe I'll have to keep doing that, because I think I have some other scissors that match some of these other colors. I'll have to keep switching scissors for the color of the floss. But yeah. Oh, I forgot what I was talking about with the sewing machines. I just need to bring it in somewhere. I just don't know where. Oh, but the feed dogs, that's what's wrong. The feed dogs that pull the fabric along. Forever, those were kind of stuck in the up position, which was fine, but just when I want to put them in the down position for quilting, that was annoying, so they wouldn't go in the down position. I could still quilt just fine, but they kept, coming up. So I went to get it fixed, and the guy said, oh, they're just, super locked, so he put heat on them and oiled them up or whatever, and he was able to finally, just from moving them a lot, basically, get them so it would go in that down position, which was great. But now when it's in the up position, which is what it needs to be to do any sort of, sewing in a straight line, I can do free motion yet, but for any straight line sewing, just the pressure, any pressure on it pushes them down again, so it just doesn't stay up in that up position, so those teeth, the feed dogs, can grab the fabric correctly. So it's almost like he made it too loose, and I can't figure out how to get it, tighten it or get it to work again. There's nothing really to tighten, really, so I don't know. So I like to try and figure those things out by myself, but this one's a little bit of a mystery to me. So, don't know. And I wasn't really happy with them last time I was there, so I want to find a new place. They got bought by a different place, and it's just been kind of weird since. It was always kind of a goofy sewing machine repair place, so I don't know. It's a weird problem too. I think it's probably not a normal thing that they see. Who knows? Maybe it is. I think I'm going to have to get more floss, more of the 6 strands before we're done here. But I can get the full length of the 6 strands, and then just whatever I've left over, I can use the 4 strands. I can get the 4 strands out of there. So that'll work. Let's see. Yeah, it's just this and then the 2 little bloops on the inside, and then we're done with the 6 strands. And then we can move on to the 4 strands. So the 4 strands are, it's actually, I try to make it a little easy. So for the rest, the 4 strands are all the rest of the dark green jades, plus some of the stems. But the 2 strands for the jade are the lighter color green, so I kept all of that lighter green, the 2 strands, and all of the darker green, the 4 strands. So so you don't have to it's not so confusing, oh man, was that I'm on red, I'm on the 4 strand area here, but was that the light green or was it the dark green? It's always going to be the dark green for the 4 strands, except for the stems. The stems are going to be that brown color. So I try to make that a little easier so we don't get totally lost. So I know that I can stick with that dark green, the fresh basil color. Oh yes, uh, Nolene is in the future because she's in Australia, so she's like, oh, she could get the winning lotto numbers for me from the future because it's tomorrow there, and then I could win the lotto and get a new sewing machine. That'd be sweet. I do have that other vintage sewing machine, but I don't have that has like cams, which is kind of a goofy thing. But that one doesn't have the zigzag cam. Apparently, the zigzag cam is really difficult to find. Typically, people actually 3D print them now. I should actually just Google that, like someone who's 3D printing those cams. Gosh, that is what I should do. But yeah, they think it's because, you know, you can get those sets of cams and people sell those, but it never usually has it never usually has the zigzag stitch one in, and they think it's because people just throw away the sewing machine and the zigzag's probably sitting inside the sewing machine, so those cams are hard to find. Oh, Linda says 4 strands you can fold over and have the loop instead of weaving in the end. Ugh, you're right. We are doing that. So, yeah, so I will, I'll show you what that means in a sec here, but based on that, I am only going to grab like a teeny bit more of the 6-strand embroidery floss if I run out, which I will. I'm going to need it like for 3 more stitches, which is just so stupid, but that's how it works sometimes. But you're right, I'm gonna do the loop method with the 4 strands, which means I can avoid all this weaving in at the beginning and still not have a knot. It's awesome. So you're right, I'm gonna do that for the 4-strand ones and the 2-strand ones. Actually, I could have done that here too. That's silly, and I bet you I did do that for this one. I don't remember. Yep, so I could have done that for the 6 strands too. I could have done the 3 strands and folded that in half and done the loop method. That was silly. Why didn't I do that? Ah, well. Gotta show you the way knot then. I think that's what I did. I did use that. I think I on purpose did it 6 strands, 4 strands, and 2 strands, so you could do that loop method. And then I kept the 1 strand just for the really far away stuff. But yeah, I didn't do odd numbers up here because I wanted to use the loop method. Oh, so Nolene says that on Facebook Marketplace someone was giving away heaps of cams. So there's always tons of those cams out there. Like it's whole sets of cams and zillions of cams. And what I'm talking about, they're little discs that you put in the top of some vintage sewing machines to get different types of stitches. You need these things called cams. And they're little discs that have a pattern in it almost, and you stick that in the top of your machine, and then your machine knows to do that stitch design. And you need it even for like a zigzag stitch. But there's other decorative stitches. So when you see them on Facebook Marketplace and eBay and all that with like a whole set of cams, you know, all these decorative stitches available, it almost never has a zigzag. I've actually never seen one of those sets have a zigzag stitch in. They're super duper rare, and it's again just because people, when you know people throw out the machine, that's usually in them, and they throw that out with it. Ugh, you guys, I have like a teeny tiny bit of thread left. I'm gonna try and do like a forward stitch and then a back stitch and see if that will be enough. Ugh, this is perfect. Yay, we beat thread chicken again, people. It's going to be a little difficult to weave in with this short of a thread, but this is great that I don't have to start a whole new thread. Boo. Okay, so I'm going to just weave in the ends that I got here. We'll go right there. One. Ooh, there's a lot of thread there. Two. This will be the thickest area with all these six strands of thread here. And can I go around? I can. So if I wouldn't be able to reach, you can use the you can flip your needle around and use the eye of the needle in first, and that can, if you don't have a lot of thread left, that can get it to work. All right. Just enough thread left for that. That was awesome. Okay, so there we are. Okay, so that is it for the 6-strand part. So that was this part up here, and here's our strand guide. All right, I think now I'm going to move. We'll just keep moving down, so I'll move to the 4-strand part. So again, that's all still dark green. So everything else that's dark green here is 4 strands. So we'll stitch those first, and then we have some 4-strand stems, and that'll be a different color. And again, the guide here, the red part is the four strands. And if you're just coming in, the whole idea is that we're using different numbers of strands in our thread to change the thickness of a stitch. So in this case, I want the things closest to us, like the jade, the part of the plant that's closest to us, to be the biggest. To feel the biggest, so I'm using 6 strands, and then as we get further away, you get the underneath leaves, and then you get the table, then the table legs, and then the kitty and the rug are way, the farthest thing away from us if we're like actually standing over the plant. So they're 1 strand because they're farthest away. Here's the finished one. So you can see that's just with the single strands way down here, whereas the bits that's closest to us are thicker. So we kind of get a little bit of that perspective, that distance in there. All right, so I am going to use the loop method for these 4 strands. So how the loop method works is I'm going to actually get twice as much thread as what I want to stitch with. So usually I stitch with 18 to 24 inches of floss here. So I'm going to fold that in half, and so now I'll have like 4 feet or so, but folded in half. So I'm going to snip that. Okay, so ultimately I'm going to stitch with 4 strands of floss, but I'm going to construct those 4 strands by just having 2 strands and folding them in half to make 4. So I'm just going to get 2 strands out of here. So how I get my strands, I just bop the top of the floss, and then they all kind of separate. You can see all the separate strands there. I'm going to just grab one, and I'm going to hold the rest in my fingers, and we're going to just pull, and it's going to bloop up behind me there. But once I get that 1 strand free, I can hardly reach that long, it's all going to just relax again, and I like running my hand through there too, just to help it relax. So I'm going to get 1 more, because I need 2. And we can go super fast. So it is, I think, much faster and much less twisty and knotty than trying to pull a couple strands. Like where you have it in your mouth, the end in your mouth, and you're like pulling both strands away from each other till you can't reach anymore. I feel like this is much easier than this. Oh, Marcia says, now I already know what you mean by the loop method. We are getting to the good part of that. So what I'm going to do now is I put my 2 strands together, and I'm going to just run my hand through my 2 strands. And now I'm actually going to bring, just to like kind of smooth it out, but I'm going to bring the 2 strands, the 2 ends together here. So now I have 4 strands on the end. I'm going to just snip them so they're all the same length. This is a little bit easier when you only want to end up with 2 strands, so you're actually just folding 1 strand in half. When I have 2 strands that I'm making 4, I do want to kind of keep this like loop here, because I don't want, some of these strands blending with these strands over there. I do kind of want to keep these separate for right now. grabbing my needle. And now that my two ends are together here, I'm going to thread all of them through my needle. There we are. So now I have 4 strands on my needle, and then down here I have the fold. So, and I do kind of like keeping my hand in that fold for the, if I'm using more than just 1 strand. So in this 2-strand to 4-strand case, I am going to just keep my hand down there. Just making sure that it stays separate. And now let's find out where to go. So these top ones are actually, that's with 2 strands. So I don't know, let's start with this guy down here. So I'm going to just pick a loop to start on. I think I'm going to do, yeah, I think I'm just going to start with this one here. So I'm going to start as if I'm making my stitch. And we're going to pull up, but now I'm going to kind of flip to the back, and I'm going to pull till I have my loop here. I'm just going to hold it there. Let's go back down to finish that stitch. Kind of pull that through and come to the back, and I'm going to, oops, I caught that a little bit funny, but I'm going to bring my thread so it's right in between the loop there. And now I'm going to finish pulling my thread through, and my thread is going to catch that loop. So, and that's basically it. That's going to hold my thread in place there. I don't have to tie a knot. I don't have to weave in any ends. It's being held by that loop. So I can just keep going here now. There we go. So I can just start my next stitch. We'll take a look at what this looks like on the back again. Ooh, I got a little knot. Little knot. Ooh, this is actually a pretty wonky knot. Usually for these knots, I just stick my needle in the loop, any of the loops, and then pull. And if I can get it, pull the right strand so it pulls up to the needle, then I can just pop it out. But there we go. So there's no knot on the back. This loop caught our initial stitch, and we can just stitch it almost as if we just magically started there with that loop method. It's just so cool. It's just so easy to do too. Just the easiest way to start. So obviously I can only do that with an even amount of thread. Like I can't double up and have it equal an odd amount of thread. Like I can't get 5 strands out of it, because what would I fold in half for that? So you're always going to end up with an even amount of thread. So like if you fold 1 strand in half, you'll have 2 strands in half. You have 4. That's what we're doing here. So anyway, so that's a limitation. But oh, and it also doesn't work well on if you start with a stitch that you have to go back in the same hole, because then you can't grab that loop over a span of fabric. So like these single crochet or lazy daisy stitches would not work well on to start with the loop method, because it would just pull back out. But for these back stitches, it works fabulously. All right, so this particular embroidery, it is like dense with stitches. There's a lot of stitching going on here, so this might actually take us more than the week to get done. But we've been kind of finishing these kind of in 4 days-ish, so we do have like that one extra day. But this may bleed over into next week a hair. Maybe not. Maybe we'll be speedy with it. But I think it took me about 7 hours or so to stitch the first one. My sample piece. So that might mean an extra day or 2 here. So this this one, the center, does have those two small little loops there, or little teardrop shape stitches. So those we will do the single chain stitch. That's down here in the instructions. So for those little center loops, we'll be doing that. But I'm going to stitch all these back stitches first, and then we'll do those loops last. So basically, after you get these big ones done, all the other ones, the center ones, are those single chain stitches. So I should take a picture of the. I'm sure I have it somewhere. I'll have to find it. But this is not a total, like, it represents Chad Kitty, but it's actually from a little drawing that I did of him when he was a kitten yet, basically. An adolescent kitty cat. A thin adolescent kitty cat. And now he's just, I think he looks different now. He's got like full cheeks and he's a big kitty now. But it's sort of modeled after him, and this jade plant is actually looks like our jade plant that we have at our house here. So it's kind of a little conglomerate of my house here and Chad Kitty at my parents' house. Old Chad Kitty when he was little. But he looks so chill. This is like, I think I'm gonna have to hang this up right next to the chair that I like reading. My chair that I like reading in the morning is right next to the jade plant, so I think I might hang this up there, and it'll just be my little reminder to relax and do that. Oh, JW is asking, is this the February embroidery of the month? It is. So this is February's embroidery of the month. Yeah, he's a big boy kitty now. Exactly, Noeline. He's a big boy kitty. But yeah, so this embroidery will our embroidery of the months are working now. It will stay, but during the month you get the subscription pricing if you subscribe, and the kit comes with the freebie as well for the month. Oh, and I don't have that near me. Do I? Let's see. I'm just making a mess. I don't have the freebie of the month near me, but it's that cute washi tape that is that has embroidery stitches on it. So that is the freebie that comes with this kit this month. And so people were asking if the freebie was going to be available in the shop. It'll be available next month. So and that's only if we have any left. So if we sell out of them with the kits. So the freebie's kind of first come, first serve. So subscribers for sure get it. And then as kits are purchased throughout the month, it's first come, first serve. But if we have any left of the freebie, we'll list them next month. Oh, Sharon's asking how many, she says, I had a chance to jump in. How many threads are you using on the jade plant? So we're actually going to use 3 different numbers of strands, Sharon. So this whole embroidery is about, it's just like a fun exercise in how many strands of floss to use, or like using combos of strands. So these ones right here are 6 strands, so all 6 strands. All the ones that we're going to do now are just 4 strands, so a little less, and then some ones that are further back will only be 2 strands. So it should look like, you know, the strands with the most, or the leaves with the most strands will look like a little closer, really subtly, and then the ones farther away will look, or the ones with less strands will look further away. So you can kind of see that here, like, you know, this green, this light green is only 2 strands, whereas this guy here is 6 strands. So you get a little bit of that depth. So it's one way that we're just playing around with something you could do with using different numbers of strands in one piece. And then down here, all these guys are a single strand because it's farthest away. So the subscription price always gets a percentage off Rockin' Robin, but when you first subscribe, you get even more off the first one. Oh, exactly. JW says that's a great way to force perspective. Yep, it's just a little subtle way to add to the idea of that we have kind of an extreme perspective here. We're looking like straight down on the plant, straight down on the table, and then to the cat. So we can just we're just exaggerating that a little bit by having the number of threads reflect that exaggeration too. Like what's closest to us has more strands, and what's further away has less strands because it's further away. So a little fun, different way of doing it, and that's how we even have a separate diagram on our instructions this month to kind of to show you what to use, the 2 strands, the 1 strand, 6 strands, all on, you know, and then also still has our normal stitch and color guide. So we're kind of looking at both of those as we stitch this puppy, this kitty. All right, I'm gonna end today with the 2 little single chain stitches in the middle here. So I'm gonna come up in the center, and then I'm gonna kind of make a loop around the chain stitch. So if I get real close here, I don't know if you guys can see. There we go. We have that little arc right there. I'm kind of imitating the arc with my thread, and then I'm going to go in the exact same hole, which is the like point part of the teardrop. Like it's pointed, and then it gets big, and then comes back down to a point. I'm starting at the point and going back into the point, and then before I pull this loop all the way through, I'm going to come up at the top of that arc, the like apex of that arc, and also in the middle of my loops here. And then I'm going to pull my needle through, and then we'll finish pulling that thread through. And because I have my thread in the middle of this loop, it's going to catch that loop, and the loop won't be able to go in any further there. So that's creating our single chain stitch. And then we're going to tack down that loop by just adding a tiny stitch, an anchoring stitch, right on the other side of that loop. There we are. So that's our first single chain stitch, and we're going to do another one right next to it here. So I'm coming up at that bottom point again, making that arced shape in the same way that the arc is going. We're going to come down in the exact same hole and then come up at the apex of that arc. It's a little hard to see with all these other leaves in here, but there we go. There's our second single chain, and then let's just attach to the fabric by doing that one little stitch to tack down that loop. And there we go, that's that. And we have a little bit of thread left on here, so I think I'll just come up. Let's just come up at this next, like right here. We'll start this leaf here, and I think we'll just finish that up tomorrow. We'll start fresh on this leaf, and again, I'm just looking at double checking here, and really here too, just to make sure it's the right color. But I know that all my 4-strand ones are these dark greens. So I'm just kind of making sure, double checking that that's a 4-strand one, and it is, and then we're just going to continue doing these 4-strand ones tomorrow. So, all right, you guys, good start on the embroidery of the month today. Yeah. All right, I'm excited to keep going on this tomorrow. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. Always love working on the embroidery of the month, and this one has a kitty in, so what's better than that? All right, so I will see you tomorrow, and be sure to check out the embroidery of the month page over at Penguin and Fish. The link's in the bio or the description text, and I'd love to see your stitching. Feel free to share over in the Penguin and Fish Crafters group. I'd love to see you working on this. So, all right. Have a lovely evening, everyone, and I will be back here again at 8:30 p.m. Central Time tomorrow. Good night.